Hi everyone, I'm Rihanna and welcome back to another episode of In Bed With. This is episode 8 and today's guest is Earthling Ed.
Hi everyone. Nice and easy, right? Hi
that's
everyone.
Good. Then the music goes in.
That's cool,
nice
because it'll cut then, won't it? Yeah. So, Ed, I feel like this episode has been a long time coming.
It certainly felt that way.
But what brings you to the north?
Well, we're here for the Manchester Pig Save, to see James Aspey, but more importantly to bear witness to the pigs at Tulip Slaughterhouse, so that's why we're here.
And you regularly go to a lot of the vigils that are in the south, don't you? So which ones, tell us?
So we try and get to the East London, Hertfordshire Chicken Save, Farnborough and the Essex Pig Save are the main ones that we go to.
So of those, the only one I've been to so far is Essex, but I'm hoping, to get around to the others.
Yeah, well there's Guildford starting next week.
The 7th, yeah.
So we'll be going to that one as well.
Go to Guildford if you're in the area. If you've never borne witness before, do get on down.
Yeah.
So to anyone watching who's not aware of who you are on your channel, could you give us a bit of background?
Yeah, so I'm Earthling Ed and I do, I guess I call it vegan educational videos and activism videos. So basically I talk about vegan issues, but mainly I go out on the streets and I do like interviews with people, like meat eaters commonly, and I'll ask them questions about why they eat meat and, the psychology of why they do so primarily, and that's what my channel's more focused on.
So you've become really known for your street interviews.
Yeah, I have, yeah.
So I think some people even call you like the prince of street interviews.
The prince, the king, the god. I accept any title.
So what's your secret then? What's your...
Education and practice. It's really simple. Sometimes people ask me, and it really is, it's just learn as much as you can, watch some documentaries, read some articles, learn the facts, and just practice it. Go to some outreach events, Earthlings Experience, Anonymous The Voice. There's any outreach where you have an ability to talk to the public, practice that, and then, before long, you'll be a pro at it. It really is, there's no secret to that.
And I hear you're actually going to be giving a bit of a workshop at the vegan camp out, right?
So I am, yeah.
And that's on street interviews?
Yeah, it'll be on street interviews and like how to, properly conduct them. But I say properly, I don't profess to be an expert on them. It's just something I've done a lot. So, it'll kind of hopefully give people the courage and the know-how to go out and do it themselves. And
I think you'll be doing that with Emma, Banana Warrior Princess, and with Joey Carbstrong.
That's right.
And each of you has quite a different style.
Yeah, I think we kind of adopt the same method, which is the Socratic method of which is primarily about asking questions rather than giving answers. But we kind of have a little of a different approach of doing it. Which is really interesting, and I think it's important because it shows like a diversity, and it shows there isn't one mold that fits all.
Yeah.
And that when it comes to activism and interviews and stuff, you can kind of adapt and do what suits you best and fit into the kind of the model that suits your style.
So speaking of Socrates, you've just released your first podcast.
That's right, yeah.
So is it quite Socrates heavy, or just a little bit, or?
It's not too philosophical.
Okay.
I name drop Socrates and I talk about the Socratic method for about 20 minutes or so, and then the rest kind of moves on to more of like the activism scene and why I think going to activism events is important and how we can kind of rally behind each other to kind of support one another. Yeah.
And what made you want to start a podcast then? Because you've been doing videos up until now.
Well, I think, my videos are quite informal. And when I do my educational videos, it's more about getting the information out there. And then the interview videos and kind of me chatting with someone else. So I don't really ever directly have that kind of intimate relationship with my viewers or like the people that kind of support me. And I felt that it was maybe a way of giving that back to the people that support me and, and watch my content. It kind of allows them to get to know me a bit better and kind of know how I would talk naturally and kind of the thoughts and feelings in my head really, and so they could maybe feel more connected to me.
Is that something you've been wanting to do for quite a long time then?
A little while. It's something I thought about it's actually something I've been talking about for doing for a long time, but I kind of wanted to wait till I had a bit more of a platform, until I was a bit more settled in the other the other areas of activism first. So I kind of, because there's a lot I want to do, but I don't want to do it all at once. I kind of want to space it out and a couple of months at a time do something new, I suppose.
So going back to bearing witness and going to vigils and saves, there seems to be quite a lot of people in the YouTube community and in the vegan community who haven't been to a vigil yet, they're aware of them and they're kind of apprehensive to go, what would you say to those people?
I mean, I think bearing witness is one of the most important tools that an activist can have, because for a number of reasons. First of all, it kind of adds veracity to your arguments. When you're talking to a meat eater, you can say that you've been to a slaughterhouse, that you've seen them in the trucks, and that you've looked an animal in the eye just before it's about to die. And I think that really resonates with meat eaters, because they want to try and trip you up. But if you can kind of show that you have that experience, you have that knowledge, that will impress them and make them more open to listening to you. So that's number one. Number two, do it for yourself. Like, one of the reasons I go is for a selfish reason. It keeps me focused.
Yeah.
It stops me from kind of getting my priorities in the wrong place, stops me from being focused about views on numbers of subscribers and about primarily the reason that we're all vegan, which is for the animals.
It kind of grounds you.
Exactly. It grounds you. It kind of knocks off any of that arrogance that people can sometimes develop. And so I go for selfish reasons. For that reason, it gives me the determination. When I get home, I want to sit and I want to edit, or I want to get out there and I want to talk to people, because I've seen these animals, and it highlights how important this issue is, and it's happening every second of every day all over the world. And until you witness it yourself, I don't think you can truly comprehend what that means. I don't think we can comprehend the numbers or the fear in their eyes until we see it. And I think watching live streams and watching YouTube videos is a great way of kind of getting to know how animals suffer, but until you do witness it, you don't know. And I think that's why it's really important to go. And people say it's to comfort the animals, and I think partly we can go there and we can provide them with some water, we can provide them with a moment of comfort before they go in. But what we have to understand is not all of the animals will want that comfort. Some of the animals will be confused and a bit scared by us. So we have to just be sensible. And there's a multitude of reasons to go to saves, and we have to kind of put ourselves aside for one moment and say, this morning, I'm going to get up. It's not about me this Tuesday morning. It's about the animals. So I'm going to go out and do that, because most of our lives we dedicate to ourselves, and we do things that make us comfortable or are convenient for us. So stepping out and dedicating 5-6 hours one morning for the most vulnerable and beings on this planet is the least we can do.
Yeah, it's a small ask, isn't it?
Tiny ask.
Yeah. Something I've heard a number of people say, and it's something that I actually say myself now, is that I don't feel like I was really an ethical vegan or an activist even before I started going to vigils. What would you say about that? It
does change you. I don't think you can doubt that. I think, and sometimes the change isn't dramatic. It can be quite subtle. Like the first few vigils I went to, I wouldn't say I felt like I was a changed man when I got home, but I realised over time, the more I went to, that I had changed, and it's interesting. I look back on who I was before then, and I don't really recognise myself. And I wonder if some of the things I was doing was disingenuous, and then they weren't. And that I talked a good talk about being there for the animals, but maybe I didn't fully. The actions I was taking didn't fully subscribe to that, way of talking. So I think it's an interesting point, and I would agree that I am more of an ethical vegan now than I was before. It's made me. Now, some people might say it's a negative. It's made me angrier, but anger's a good emotion. We shouldn't necessarily fight it.
If you channel it properly.
That's exactly right. We have to. Some people who don't go to vigils are too happy, and some people who go to vigils are too angry. So what you have to do is you have to find that balance. So you go and see the animals and the suffering, so you get the determination, the courage to go and speak up. But also at the same time, we've got to, keep a good group of friends to kind of ground us and keep us in that happy frame of mind. But it's all on a spectrum. The most important thing is to utilise all these different emotions. And going to saves does that, because you have the community and you have the support group there. And going to saves has meant I've met some of the nicest people I've ever met in my life.
Me too.
So they give you that support, but at the same time, it gives you that determination and that drive to go out there and make a real difference. And I feel like as an activist, I'm a much better activist now than I was, before I was going to vigils.
Yeah, and I really agree with what you said about it being on a spectrum, because if you're not experiencing like the two extremes at any point, then how can you really appreciate being happy?
Right.
It's all kind of a plateau, isn't it? It's all sort of the same.
Yeah.
And as much as I really like going to vegan festivals, for example, if you're only going to vegan festivals, then I think there comes a point when you need to step up and say, what more could I be doing?
Yeah.
But I think there are a lot of people who are scared about going to vigils. It's obviously not the only kind of activism you can do.
No.
And you last week set up the fur protest, right?
Yeah, that's right, through Surge.
So that was outside London Fashion Week.
Yeah, so we were outside the main space for London Fashion Week on the Saturday and Sunday. And you're right, vigils are just one aspect of activism. And it's important to try and broaden our activism and do as much as we can in different areas. And protesting is another really good way of getting involved. and channeling that anger. Protesting is a wonderful way of channeling that anger, and
in a healthy way too. I think
totally healthy. It's cathartic. You go out there and you hold your placard. You can chant if you like. You can be on the megaphones. You can do you can do so much at protest that you can really fit around your own personality. And some people go there and they're very quiet and they like to hold placards. And some people, like myself, like to be more outspoken and get on those megaphones. And that's what we've got to realize about activism is it's so versatile and so moldable to kind of how we want to operate as activists. And there isn't, as I said before, one size fits all. So don't use, the fear of seeing, the people you respect doing activism a certain way and thinking you could never do that. Don't aspire to be like someone. Aspire to be the best version of yourself.
So the protest you did last weekend was fur, and kind of in society, even though we're kind of seeing an increase in fur because of things like Canada Goose jackets, it is still something that's very much a taboo, even for a person who eats animals. We've kind of grown up being told that it's not okay to wear fur and that it's cruel. So how did you find the public received your message?
I think, for the most part, it's really good. I'd say maybe 90% of the reactions we get are positive, even for people going into the fashion week. Fur is such a divisive industry, but for the most part, people do despise it, or at least in this country, they despise it. And I think that's just because of activism throughout the 80s, into the 90s. It was so radical and it was very different, and it woke people up to the horrors of the fur trade. And unfortunately, the activism side of that slipped away. I guess when we banned fur farming in this country, the fur activism kind of departed because we didn't need it as much. But now that we've seen a rise in fur and rise in designers using fur and a rise in, fur trims and fur pom-poms and all the key rings and even on shoes and stuff, it's something we have to step up again and kind of get a bit more active about and call people out that are wearing fur. And again, there's so many ways of doing that. You don't have to be rude. You don't have to be standoffish. You can just go and educate them. But if your approach is that you want to go and confront them and shame them, then there's so many different ways of doing that as well. So,
depending on how you are as a person.
Depending on what personality you have, how much confidence you have.
Because you carry around Canada Goose specific leaflets, don't you now? Because in London, around here I don't really see that many. If I go into Leeds, I might see a few. But I notice when I'm in London that there are so many Canada Goose jackets. And especially if I'm around New Bond Street or Selfridges, it seems very normal to wear fur around there. But you're carrying around these Canada Goose specific leaflets, which I think is great. And then you go and approach people, don't you?
I always go in an educational mindset. So I always go to offer someone a leaflet. I say, can I offer this leaflet about your jacket? You might not be aware, but Canada Goose uses real dog fur on the trim, and most of the time it'll go well. Sometimes people will be go away, or a bit ruder than that. But but for the most part, it's really good. And what I always say is, it doesn't matter what reaction you've had. The fact that you've created a reaction from them, and even if it's negative, you force them to think about something. And that's a positive. So even if they go home and they don't take the fur trim off, you confront them about it and make them a bit uneasy and inconvenience their day. And I think that can go a long way. And that's why it's so important that as many of us do this as possible, so that every time these people are going out to London or anywhere for that matter, every time they go out wearing Canada Goose or any fur, they get confronted
by someone,
and then that's how we stop it, and that's how we stop people from buying it, because people on the street will see, because that's a really important thing. When they're with their friends or the family or just passers-by, they'll be drawn, what's going on here? This man's confronted this person about his fur trim. I don't want that to happen to me. I better not buy that jacket, or I better not buy fur. So it's a really powerful tool, and I think it's the best tool we have is stopping the fur trade from really making it come back.
So I've just realised I haven't asked you anything about your vegan story.
Oh, yeah.
So how long have you been vegan, and why did you go vegan?
So 2 years, and Earthlings was the main catalyst. So I guess it's not a very exciting story in that sense, but I was veggie for about 8 months before. And then I was persuaded to watch Earthlings, which I did. And then that was it, really. And then I kind of watched Cowspiracy a few months later, and that kind of solidified those beliefs. But it was interesting because I was vegan for a few months before I made the connection. I didn't have that. I didn't really fully grasp why I'd gone vegan until maybe 6-7 months of actually being vegan.
Oh wow, okay.
It was quite a while. I knew why I did it. I was into the animals, but I didn't really comprehend that. And
was it like a moment that you had? Then you were like, "Oh, this is why I'm doing it."
I don't think so.
No.
Some people talk about a light bulb moment. I don't think I had that personally. Not with veganism. It was just kind of something I reflect back, look on, and go, "Oh, around that time was the time that I really began to fully feel that gut feeling and and understand the severity and the magnitude of what's going on."
I suppose it's because the conditioning's so strong. It does take time for it to begin to unravel.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, morally, I knew why I was doing it, but as you said, that condition, and conditioning can sometimes be a lot stronger than our moral persuasion. So it does take time, I think, for people. It took a little bit of time for me.
Yeah. And how did you really start to get into activism?
So that was more, I guess my YouTube was the first one. Sometimes I'm a bit skeptical to call it YouTube activism, although it's a form of activism. So I guess YouTube was my first form of activism, which was in January 2016.
Okay.
And I started doing like street activism stuff in March, like street interviews in March. And then I did outreach events and stuff from May onwards, Earthlings and protesting and stuff kind of blossomed from May onwards. Yeah, and I've not looked back.
You've been doing more and more since then, yeah?
Well, that's the thing. It's interesting. I allude to this in my podcast a little bit. Like, I always think when we talk to vegans always say, I wish I'd gone vegan sooner. Yeah. And every time I talk to activists, they say, I wish I'd become an activist sooner. There's a pattern here. And, if you are a vegan and you're one of the people who thinks, I wish I'd gone vegan sooner, well, then you're the sort of person who will, say that when you're an activist. So that's, I always encourage people just to throw yourself in, and you don't have to jump into the heavy stuff. Just go do some outreach, go hand out some flyers and just meet people. And it takes no time at all to get your confidence up. It really doesn't. So the more you do it, the easier, and it's fun.
And it's a great way to meet other vegans too, because when Andrew and I moved up north from London, we didn't know any vegans. Right. We didn't have any kind of community. I felt quite isolated, to be perfectly honest. Right. And then it was only from going to like the pig saves in Manchester that we met all these wonderful activists, and now a lot of them are really good friends.
Yeah, that's it.
So before, when we were talking about the fur protest you did last weekend outside London Fashion Week, you mentioned Surge, and I thought actually lots of people might not know what Surge is. So.
Oh yeah, so Surge is an activism group that I co-founded with a few other people, and we kind of host regular events in London. So we've done animals and entertainment and fur primarily.
And a dairy one.
And dairy, yeah, exactly. And we did dairy protests. So we started in May, June last year. And, it was just, it was another extension of needing to do more. And I felt that the Earthling Ed platform and what I was able to do as an activist in Earthling Ed was not enough to what I wanted to do. And I wanted to, with other people, I wanted to create like an activist base which could incorporate more of a community, because obviously the Earthling Ed stuff is fairly individualistic, but I wanted to do something that would involve lots more people and would get lots more people involved, and could be an inspiration to get more activists out there. And Surge was kind of that manifestation really of those wants that I had, and also wanted to collaborate with other activists, It's been really great, and I think the response we've had from people has been very positive, and what we've already begun to see is that the Surge kind of brand, if you like, or what Surge represents, is actually become quite popular around the country. We did the march last year, and as well as being an activist group, we want it to be a unifying group. We want it to kind of inspire people to get involved and inspire people to kind of want to take that next step in the right direction. So hopefully it'll do that, or hopefully has been doing that.
And this will be the second year running for the Animal Rights March as well, right?
Yeah, September the 2nd is the second Animal Rights March that we've hosted or will be hosting.
And that's co-organised with Heart Cure?
Heart Cure.
Go Heart Cure.
Yeah, Go Heart Cure and the Save Movement, of course.
Yeah, so that's a really awesome collab.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. I think if we want the vegan movement to progress, we should be setting up all these individual groups, but we should be collaborating and working together. And I think it's through this teamwork that we can inspire more people from different backgrounds, and we can inspire people that generally will stick to certain forms of activism to kind of come together and all work together. And that's the only way to progress this movement is cooperation and collaboration.
Yeah. And we're definitely a lot stronger together.
That's it. And that's why we're constantly divided by the media, by the government, by whoever. Their main weapon against us is to divide us, and that's why we have to stay together and work together.
I mean, the industries want us to be divided, because if we did all unify more than we are now, we are a force to be reckoned with, but even more so.
Well, this is it. They say there's so many vegans now in the world and it's so few of us, so few vegans that do the activism. If every vegan was an activist, the change we would have would be monumental, and it's such a short space of time. And that's why it's really frustrating for people that are out there in front of slaughterhouses, they are out there protesting or flying, whatever, because we see firsthand how much change can be made.
Yeah.
So if you tripled or quadrupled the numbers of people at these protests, we'd have such a massive impact.
Because we wouldn't be able to be ignored.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
It is power in numbers, but I mean, there's definitely an increase in people getting involved in activism, and you were saying earlier that people contact you, and you've noticed in the past couple of months in particular, people are like, oh, how do I get involved?
Well, that's what's I think is inspiring, because the number of vegans is growing, which means that proportionally the number of activists is also growing.
Yeah.
So what we need to do is not only normalise veganism within the mainstream community, but normalise activism within the vegan community.
Yeah.
And that's precisely what we'll do with the more activists there are. We'll make it kind of a more desirable thing to be. And we will progressively see more activists get involved. I've met some really great people in the past couple of months from activism alone. Like in a year's time, I'm very excited to see like how big, this friendship circle will be, and how many more people I'll have met through activism. It's, that kind of gives me that determination and that inspiration to carry on, and because I'm looking forward to meeting so many new people and having them work alongside me. And
yeah, me too. That's what I really love about going to like the vigils around the country and kind of like meeting all the people, setting up the groups. It does inspire you.
Yeah.
Because you think all these activists are popping up, and some of them have only been a vegan for a few months.
That's inspiring in itself.
Yeah.
It took me a while before I became an activist, like a year.
Yeah, me too.
So, and these people, it's such a quick turnaround now. I think it's because there's more of an imperative, and there's more of I think activists are more outspoken about being active.
Yeah.
And it's kind of inescapable. And I think the YouTube scene's changed quite a lot. I think where a lot of vegans, would kind of turn to YouTube and watch the videos, but the YouTube scene's not as what it was. And a lot of the videos on YouTube now are activist videos, save videos, interviews, whatever. So people kind of, when they're exposed to YouTube, they're also exposed to activism as well. And that kind of gives them a push. I think so anyway.
So at the very beginning of the video, I said, what brings you up north? But you're actually a northerner, aren't you?
I am, originally.
Where
Yeah.
are you from?
So I was born in York, which is very close to Bradford, but I moved down to London, and I haven't come back really.
And soon there will be a York Animal Save.
Yeah.
So that'll be hopefully a new group that forms in the next couple of months.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for talking to me. We have talked non-stop about activism, which is exactly what I thought we'd talk about.
Exactly.
So thanks so much for being on.
You're more than welcome. Thank you for having me in bed with you.
And actually on the website it says publicly refuse to sit where they serve animals, which for me I think would be quite limiting, because it suggests that you can only go to all vegan places, which
because I really find them uncomfortable, but needs must. And I officially have a proper bump now. I think, during the first trimester you couldn't see at all.
Very good.
That was good.